This conference will now be recorded.
Yes,
Ramesh,
sorry.
is it open for me to say a sentence? I'm writing right now a white paper on RAS in the data centers, and I would appreciate anyone in this forum to review it. If there's anyone who's interested, just let me know.
What's the context, Walter? Is this like a potential OCP proposal, or is it like a thing that your company's doing that you want review on, or can you give us a little more?
Yeah, it's a combination of my understanding of the problems in the data center today, based on what I hear here, and the discussions that we had in OCP Global, and then some ideas about how we can solve it.
Hey,
So,
one more
Walter,
question.
when you write it, do you plan to contribute the white paper to OCP, or it's just what is your plan with that? Do you have any thoughts?
I plan to publish it. I'm really new here, so you guys can tell me what would be the kind of
I mean,
contribution.
that's one. I just wanted to let you know that's a possibility. If you want to do so, you can contribute it to OCP as well.
Okay.
Is it right, John? Correct me if I'm.
One question, like I think before we take the decision, maybe we can I have one feedback, maybe John and others can add also. Like, are you trying to solve a particular problem, or you're trying to general overview of how the RAS should work in data center? If it is trying to solve some new problem, you want to publish the white paper, that will be more weightage than, okay, hey, this is
That's true.
this is what, hey, my opinion should be. Okay, that is different than, okay, hey, this is the particular problem we have in the industry, there is no solution for, this is the proposal. Okay, then we can review part of this V team, okay, and go for contribution. You got it? And please share with the white paper that you have. Okay, and let's review and how can we convert that kind of problem statement to work. We can do it here, right? And second
Yeah.
thing is,
Okay.
are we telling the problem or are we telling the solution? If we're telling the problem is one weightage, if we're telling the solutions to particular problem, it gives other weightage, others can benefit from it.
Your
Got
point is very valid, Rama. The reason I asked, and I think Drew also started, because if we are devoting OCP meeting time for that, we want to understand whether it's OCP. It's supposed this is work for OCP, or it's just offline private work. I think that was the that was the
Yeah,
reason
that was
for
the
that.
gist of my question as well. Yeah.
Okay,
John, do
so
you have
maybe
any
I'll
comments
send
on
it to
that?
one or two, maybe to Yogesh and Drew, and you guys tell me if it's good enough for OCP to consume OCP time or not.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
sure.
there's no way. I think there's no way, any way of knowing without understanding what the white paper's job is trying to do, right? If you're trying to summarize the problem statement, that should already be done within the work that we're doing within the group. If you're trying to propose a solution, either that solution aligns with what this work stream is trying to do, in which case it should already be part of the documentation. If it's proposing something which the work stream hasn't addressed, then either you publish it separate because it doesn't reflect the view of the work stream, right? Or you publish it in private. You publish it in private, then yeah, it's up to, it's a volunteer effort of if anyone wants to actually provide feedback in the context of the company, not in the context of a collective work stream.
I understand. Okay, thank you very much for this explanation, John.
Yeah, I think, John, yeah, good feedback. I think it aligns with what we are thinking. Yeah.
Okay.
So what you can do, Walter, is share the paper, maybe with a few of us, and then we can take a look and we can decide the next steps.
Perfect. Thanks.
All right. Is there anything else we want to cover before we start looking at the doc?
Any other opens from anyone? Welcome, late joiners, Mark, Andy. We're just getting started. We just asking for opens, and the next part is to dive into our first contribution, the requirements document.
Okay, I'll share then because I'm not hearing anything, Yogesh. So not to step on anyone's toes, but
No. I heard you guys. Thanks.
oh yeah,
Hey,
yeah. Hey,
just a
Andy.
quick question. Hey guys. I'm trying to turn on my camera, but it's not connected yet, so I'll figure that out in a little bit. But just for context, since I missed a few meetings before, when do you plan on actually publishing this? When would be a final draft? Rough timeline.
Well, the review's the end of this month, and then I don't know what the latency for the contribution process is beyond that. Do you, Yogesh?
We are targeting mid-Feb. I hope we can get it done by then. It should not take more than a couple of weeks after we finalize the doc.
Alrighty. Thanks.
So you need to target
And
an
just
IC meeting.
so, sorry, go ahead, John. Yes,
You
that's
yeah, you need to pick an IC meeting where you're going to present this, and then you have to create the slide set for the IC to understand what they're reviewing.
all right. So it might, yeah. So we'll work on that in parallel then. We'll
Well,
start on that now. So hopefully we'll find one by mid-Feb.
yeah, sounds good. I thought the hardware group meets like bi-monthly or something, or monthly. So, there may be some delay there while we find a slot. But
No,
Yogesh,
IC is different, right? IC meeting isn't that different, John, than hardware management group
Yes,
IC meeting?
yes. The IC meeting is on top of all the projects, right? So
okay,
the co-leads of the hardware management project need to know about this, but they don't necessarily have to approve it. This is open source, right? So they
okay,
need to know about it. So when it goes up to the IC and they say, okay, John, you know about this, right? Yeah, I, as IC rep does, and they turn to the project leads for hardware management and they say, you know about this, right? And they need to be able to say, yes, we know it's coming, right? And we at
okay.
least have.
Well, thankfully, I think you know about it, and Jeff Otter's also been helping. So we'll work with you all to make sure you're not blindsided. That sounds good. And Yogesh, I'm happy to help you make slides to get this pushed through.
All right, thanks.
Okay, so with that, there were just a couple. There were some simple things.
Sorry, Drew. Sorry, interrupting. Andy, just to make sure that answers your question, and I just want to understand also why you asking, and just a little bit more piece of information. This is the first revision. We do think that there will be more versions, revisions of this in future.
So Andy, I think that was to you. You have any particular concerns here, or was it just
Oh,
FYI?
no particular concerns. Just a quick question on schedule. But I actually just got disconnected, got back. Was there a question towards me?
Well, we were
No,
just
no, I was
talking
just
about
making sure.
the time.
Yeah, go ahead,
Making
Drew.
sure that you had it, is it like understood why you asked the question and make sure we address any concern you have.
Oh, no concerns. The reason for the question, in fact, was Yogesh, I connected with our internal teams from Samsung with regard to this document, that there would be a call from your side to our internal teams about this, and so they were inquiring as to what this was, and so I intended to kind of give them a brief summary and kind of keep everybody on the same page, like all the teams within Samsung on the same page. So that was my intent of the question.
Okay, all right, understood. Thank you.
Okay. Am I okay to go now, Yogesh?
Yeah, sorry, Drew, I interrupted you, but yeah,
No
please.
worries. We got to figure this all out. So, okay. So there was this comment about, do we have the upfront definitions or, uh, I guess I proposed you can add a bookmark in a Google Doc and then it'll hyperlink down below. So we could have, we can find the first instance of operating system in the document and then link to the glossary below. So if you want to know what it means, you just click the link and you'll see what we mean by OS. Do we want to do that? Because I don't mind, just going through the mechanical process of copying this stuff down into the glossary if folks agree. I think if we get an agreement, we can just do it and be done with it. So any concern there? Okay. I don't hear a concern, so I'm going to put a note that we agreed we should do this, unless someone objects. And again, I'm happy to hear you out.
Sounds good to me.
Okay. Okay. Sounds good. Okay, so I'll go do that, and it'll renumber some stuff. Shouldn't be a big deal. Other thing I was going to propose is, so we need some text here, and I don't necessarily, well, at least I see a notepad text, and it doesn't appear to be assigned anyone. I don't mind doing it. I think that Mark Fletcher, had the classification in a different document. Mark, I would be happy to copy your definitions in here and hyperlink to your doc if you want. That's fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine with me too.
Okay. Do you mind giving me a hyperlink to your document or something so I can find it? If that's cool with you, I'll just send me the link. I'll use your doc as a guide.
So
Yeah,
you go ahead.
Yogesh, can you provide the link?
Yeah, I can do that. Question to Drew was, Drew, you're planning to insert the definitions in line here, right? Not hyperlink to an external document. Is that
Well, I don't know. I was thinking copy them because Mark's document isn't an official uh,
right?
submission, and do we want how self-contained does this need to be? I don't really care one way or the other. I was just thinking if I copy them in, it's kind of self-contained. I'm happy to refer to Mark's document
Two
too.
ways to make it
I think
self-contained. One is, sorry, real quick, Rama. One way is to, if it is small enough and it doesn't break the flow, and that's why we reorganize the whole document in the first place, to include it in line. But it seems like if it's breaking the flow too much, then we can have an appendix and have details there and hyperlink with the brief intro here. That's another way, right?
Okay, I'll take a look. I don't remember that the definitions were that bad. I think Mark had a pretty compact definition.
Yeah. No, I'm just
yeah.
in general, I'm saying those definitions were not that disruptive, or the size of them, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think what I was trying to tell, I think because now we are making is like all the infrastructure requirements, right? And maybe like I agree, like putting an appendix of the link, but high level descriptions can be here. Similar to that, maybe I'll add that summary of the other document we had for like error formats, like we choose, right? Redfish based, CPR based error formats. Like Drew is that like adding a small one page, like so that it will become a completeness. Do you think we should add that like one page and refer that other document?
I don't know. I mean, maybe we can just reference it and say, hey, we decided on CPR and here's the document that describes it or something.
Yeah,
That
just to, like yeah, maybe
that would
10
be
lines.
one.
Sorry, go
Yeah.
ahead.
So no, I was just saying I'm not opposed to the idea. Like Drew, I'm also not 100% settled on where that would be introduced. But I think when we talk about logs, having the details as an appendix, this is one example of how we can, the CPR provides a way to, or modifications that we made in CPR to include the logs. We can do that, right? Any further thoughts, Drew? You seem to be thinking something else.
Oh, no, that's fine. I mean, this is really just talking about component errors. And so the other thing I was thinking is, the race conditions are a general requirement, and they're like, that's the big headache I've been looking at, right? Is that, you have a corrected error. It's a non-atomic read. There are multiple registers for a typical corrected error. And if, someone else is clearing them, the BMC is going to be pretty slow compared to anything else, like on the host processor that would log them. Same thing with poison consumption, right? The OS is going to try to log and clear the poison consumption clearly and drive whatever recovery it's capable of, and the BMC will just be left in the lurch. So I didn't think these comments necessarily belong just under corrected errors. And what I was going to propose is maybe we take the race conditions as part of the problem, because up above, Ross had said, hey, here are the two challenges: creation of logs and interpretation. I prefer collection of component error logs than creation, personally. But I think we could put the race condition here needs to be solved, and that's part of why we're doing all of this. So if no one objects, I'll do that. Because I think there are two basic problems with collecting error logs. The first one is we don't always know what to collect. The second one is it's really hard to collect it, especially on bare metal. We need a way to do that out of band. And so, the thing down below, this is about the difficulties with collecting out of band.
Yeah, Drew, I was also thinking about that first section in those two bullets. And I think I agree with you. The race condition is one of the fundamental issues that we are trying to address. Creation of the log, I think I agree with your comment there. It's not just creation of any log, it's creation of a pertinent log, which helps with precise and expedient through isolation. That's really the full problem statement, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking about that too, and I really didn't. I'll probably make some more comments, but I think let's hear from others as well what they think. Maybe you want to bring those two bullets on the screen. Scroll up a little.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Sure. Here we go. And
So,
the bullets are talking right here, right?
Okay, not this one, the fundamental problem statement area which Rama and Anil, and Mark's name is there for problem statement review.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, my comment was here off to the side. The challenge is knowing what to log. So when I hear creation, I think, well, that's just putting some values in a CPR log. That's pretty easy. Creating the log. The hard part is knowing what to log and the race conditions. That's why I was saying I like the word collection rather than creation. But I don't care that much. I mean, if people like creation better, I'll live with it.
Like maybe I a little bit spend some time this week and try to add a little bit, and then we can review next week. That does work, Drew, for this
Sure.
section?
So I'll just say Rama will take a look at this and make a how about that?
Yeah, sure.
Sounds good. Thanks, Rama. Okay. And in the meantime, I'll move the race condition comment up, because that's really the fundamental problem, or one of the fundamental problems of collecting logs. Okay. Cool. We're making progress. I looked at most of this and it was pretty good. I didn't have a ton of comments. I thought, this section looked about right. Only thing I added was, and it kind of it came in a goofy place here, but I had just a footnote, because when I read this, I had to think for a minute and try to remember what we talked about. And in the infrastructure case, we have a hypervisor, and the the users are running, in virtual machines. So it is feasible to have OS first logging. So that's why I just put a bullet there, because I had to think about it, and if I had to think about it, I assumed maybe a reader coming in cold would be struggling to figure out what we're saying. Carlos, I did reply, by the way. Firmware first is an ACPI UEFI term, so it is actually more general than SMM. So not to step on your toes, but that's. Is Carlos still here? Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here, but Drew, isn't the problem that if the firmware, the way that you're handling firmware first consumes compute cycles and is using, a higher privilege that is vulnerable, that's the problem. But if you have some other firmware that can achieve the same without those concerns or problems or pain points that we're seeing today, would that be acceptable? Kind of like if the ARM way addresses
Oh,
those two pain points, would that be
yeah,
acceptable or
absolutely. But
feasible or
that's like a
recommended?
management processor. It's BMC first, effectively. So see, a firmware first, I think traditionally was, BIOS first. So ARM does it with another management processor out of band. Does that make sense?
No, it does. It's just the way that I thought that in the previous meetings and even some previous versions of this document, the not recommended and not desired was mainly tied to those two pain points that we described, right? So I guess my question is, do we just want to generalize it to any firmware, right? Even
Well,
though that,
let's what we need to do is put the definition of firmware first in the glossary, and what we mean is the ACPI UEFI traditional definition. So maybe if I do that, would that help?
yeah, that I mean that what's what okay. What that answers is any firmware that is ACPI compliant, that's going to be the not recommended or not desired, right?
Yeah, I mean this is it is firmware running on the host CPU.
Yeah, and Drew, I think my frustration here is I don't like, your definitions, not recommended or not feasible. Instead of putting not feasible, why don't you just include the detail of, what is the impact of using OS first for corrected errors? You know,
Well,
I
sure. I
you know,
mean,
not
like
feasible is yeah, not feasible is not enough for somebody to understand, what the true impacts are.
okay, yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. I mean, the problem is, if it's a customer's OS that they upload and we have no idea what it is, then it's not like we don't get error logs if we do it OS first because we have nothing in the OS to log it. Um, so I mean, not feasible is correct here, but what would you suggest for wording?
Well, I would just put in exactly what you just said. You know, you're in a bare metal system, so the OS is unknown. Therefore, OS capability is unknown. Therefore, you can't rely on the OS to manage errors. Just you can boil it down to a sentence. Rather than not feasible, you just say because the OS is unknown and OS capability is unknown, and therefore, you know,
Maybe just say because the OS is not owned by the operator.
Very good. I
And
like that.
that brings in host of problems.
yeah,
That is very clear. Thank you. That's good. Is that okay with you, Mark?
yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, to me, I think you need to include more detail in all of these boxes, right? Um, Even the recommended, you should probably put in you're recommending it because I can, collect corrected errors sideband without impacting the operating system or the platform. The ideas. put the detail in here that describes your, your recommendation.
Should
So
we
basically,
should we do that now? Should we do that now online, Drew? I think
Well, I was going to
I think
volunteer
we
to
also
work on it.
agree with Mark's thinking. I think adding a little bit more detail to illustrate why helps. But should we do it online
It
now?
doesn't, yeah, it doesn't have to be done
I'll
online.
do it offline if it's okay. But Mark, I agree. I mean,
Okay.
I read the table and I struggled even knowing it very, very well to understand it, just like you were saying. So I completely agree with you, Mark. So if that's okay with you, I'll do that. I'll add just like this level of detail, just
Yeah,
short
just a
sentence.
sentence. If it's more than a sentence, it's too much. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
it's like you want color coding for if it's feasible or not feasible, or what's feasible and what's not feasible, and then you want the explanation in the text.
yes.
Well, I
Unlike
would just say a one sentence explanation, right? Not a paragraph.
Walter,
yeah,
actually, it will vary for all of them. So having them right there in that box, a very quick and short explanation, which a person who is familiar with this arena would know what is being talked about. I think that's probably my preferred approach.
yeah. So I'll just say if that's okay. I love it, Mark. I was frustrated too because I was reading it and like trying to remember why we said what. So thank you. That was really good feedback.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I suspect anybody reading the document would be lost, though,
yeah,
right? That,
yeah. I hear you.
I
That's
know
fine.
you understand, and I think people who are in the meeting understand, but I'm not sure that anybody reading the document without having attended these meetings would know.
Well, and I ended up having to put a footnote in. I think I can get rid of my footnote and just say, feasible. We can use a hypervisor. The hypervisor will log the errors and the customers running VMs and boom, simple explanation, very brief and explains it.
Yeah.
I mean, sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Well, I was going to say, I think you might have more trouble on the firmware first non-fatal recoverable errors, because for those, it's feasible but not desired. You know, I, the idea is, I think that, beauty in the eye of the beholder, right? That one might be more debatable, but ultimately, I think it's fine. Uh, I don't have a problem with what you've done. I would just say, not desired needs to have a sentence to describe why it's not desired.
Okay. Well, let me try to put something down, and maybe I'll ping you to review these when I've done it, Mark, if that's okay. And we can because I think you'd have good feedback for us.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it should probably be reviewed here. I mean, that's
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was going to say, let's do it offline also, and then during the week, and let's devote next week for this.
Yeah.
Let's do
I
it
guess
in.
that's what I was going to say is I'll do it as fast as I can, and then Mark, I'll ping you when I've done it, and if you can take a look ahead of the meeting next week, that'd be helpful.
I'll do that.
Sounds good. Okay.
I think Drew,
Yeah.
I think like maybe like we can ask like all the team members to add comments, okay? And then next week let's prioritize who added the comments to review those, okay? And then run through the run like this so that then it will encourage other people to add comments before the meeting, and then it will be faster contribution, right?
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Sounds good. I mean, we want everyone to add comments as fast as as soon as they can, so that we can start
Yes.
start addressing them. Yeah.
I was just going to go ahead. Sorry.
Drew, is there anything where we recommend or is desired for firmware first? Because it seems to me like the entire column is not desired. Is there any place that I missed?
No, I mean, Mark and I may debate the one case he mentioned, but in my view, we are trying to get rid of SMM. SMM is a performance and security concern,
So
and
do we
and we
really want
really,
to keep it on the table? Or do
I'm
we want
sorry.
to just say what you just said and you know that it's not desired to use SMM at all or UEFI and just leave it to OS first and BMC?
I don't mind putting the comments in. Let's put the comments in and see how it works, and
Okay.
we can always
Yeah.
delete the column if it turns out that it's a waste of time to have it. But
Well,
like here, it is.
Comments will bring out more nuances. I think let's try it. I agree with you, though. I think some comments may bring out more nuances, which
but I would also keep in mind that, Drew and I don't exactly agree on this. I know Drew wants to get rid of SMI, but I can say, as far as HPE is concerned, I'm not sure we're on the same trajectory, and that maybe we'll get rid of SMI eventually, but right now I foresee more of a hybrid. So we'll offload some things to the BMC, but just for timing conditions and because of certain other requirements, we're likely to still need SMI to be able to do some things.
Yeah, I buy that, Mark. And I guess the other thing I'd say is, let's say that we pioneer an SMM-free solution, and then sometime in the future, someone publishes a security exploit that uses SMM to like proves that they discover the hole in SMM that allows them to take over a machine. Then maybe everyone pivots away from SMM because of the security concerns. So at least we have the flexibility at that point.
Yeah, I think what I would just say is, I, I think, we're likely on a trajectory where SMM will go away eventually. And it's really a question of,
Time.
how quickly it happens. And so
Yeah.
I'm just one of those who says, well, the one thing that makes the most sense to me is offloading the corrected errors to the BMC, because that's not where I really require SMM, right? I can
Yeah.
easily get access to them out of band. I can collect, I can action, all of that offload makes lots of sense. And of course, also reduces the need for SMM. So
Right.
so that's probably going to be step one, and then the question becomes, when we have, a fatal event or a non-fatal event, something that, requires immediate intervention, will that still be, SMM because it just has to be timely, so my view is there'll simply be a transition that will happen over time where we'll start out with small stuff, and then will be medium stuff, and then eventually it'll just be all offloaded. And
Yeah.
and I'm not opposed to that. I think my
Sure.
trajectory and your trajectory are probably not exactly aligned.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly fine. And what we want to do, so we are uh, deeply concerned about the security implication even more than the performance. And so I want to be on the front edge, the first to get rid of SMM, and that's great. And I think that's fine. And you can work out we can work out how we incrementally uh, deliver parts of this with the silicon vendors, so that you can do your gradual thing, and I can rush headlong into it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I
I
honestly, I
think we're
think,
okay. I think we're aligned there. Yeah,
yeah,
so I think we're
we
good.
just we describe the benefits and we describe the detriments and the ideas. Then, the there I don't think there's a hard requirement either way. So if some vendors want to go with SMM, like we will probably do, that's fine. I just want to make sure that the language that we use is not, hard requirement that we abandon SMI immediately. It needs to be,
yeah,
language that
I think
describes the benefits, the detriments, and then vendors can decide.
yeah, I think Mark, your point is well taken, and you might have noticed that we have been deliberately trying to do just that, right? So make sure that this solution transition is, this is the vision, right? But the transition is gradual, and the vendors or operators who have reasons to follow other paths or other models are able to do and still leverage the framework, right?
Yeah, no, so let me just say is, I think you guys have done a terrific job, and I know part of it was because of the pushback, that some of us provided, but in the end, right, I think this is perfectly reasonable. If, it describes, the benefits, and that's how it should be, I think. Just here's what you gain, here's what you risk. You mentioned timing earlier today, and I think that's still a big problem that wouldn't exist if you were in OS first, and wouldn't exist if you were in firmware first. And the idea is, that's a trade-off, right? And I think that all that we need to do is describe that trade-off, to say, here's your benefits, and for me, the corrected errors, no brainer, right? It's just a no brainer.
Okay.
And then there's obviously the cases here where you're talking bare metal, where you don't know what the OS capability is, and obviously that's going to be very limited, right?
Yeah.
You won't have choices for a lot of that. But I think as long as we describe those benefits, then let the vendor just decide what he wants to implement, and how far he wants to implement.
Right. Well, and I think it'll be just based on market pressure, right? And so that'll work too. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, let me just say is, if Google decides they're not going to buy, servers from vendors that have SMM, that's going to speak volumes, right? so
Yeah.
No pun intended there.
yeah, yeah. So the idea is, right, I do what I can most of the time, but ultimately I always do what I'm told.
That's a funny way of putting it.
Yeah, the idea is, if the management team comes down and says, we can't do this, then obviously that will dictate our actions for sure. But we'll see. Like I said, I'm still a proponent of SMM. I think our solution that we have is solid because we have a silicon root of trust that helps us. But the idea is, nothing is impossible, right? You're concerned about SMM. I would be just as concerned that somebody could hack the BMC and attack the platforms that way. So those holes have to be closed no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Either way.
Yeah, and I think that's a very interesting point. I think the different attack surfaces for Google, the network is highly controlled. So the attack surface for the BMC is small. So that's a good point.
Maybe
Okay.
to address his concerns, maybe instead of saying like anything not recommended, we will say generic comments, that then in the comments we'll say that for OCP platforms, that like what we are recommending is this approach, so that it covers like other teams' interest. Is that
Hey,
works?
just on the side, I was listening in to this conversation, which I believe is excellent. It's amazing that we have come this far. But just an idea at this point is, how about, all this is great, by the way. I don't object, but a real kind of use case scenario to kind of give us an example, give us an idea as to what the impact is actually referring to, right? Let's hypothetically say, okay, we come up with the BMC first solution, whichever solution that we're going for. If we were to achieve this, then this is sort of the impact that we expect and why. What kind of collaboration have we done between, let's say, the memory vendors, the CPU vendors, and then the cloud cloud providers, so on and so forth. And, how is it actually, and kind of to, let's imagine somebody who doesn't know about this kind of going in to read this document. I think a real example will be very useful for them to understand what this means. Just a thought.
Yeah,
And
no,
kind of to that point, right?
I,
Sorry, Mia. Go ahead.
well, I was just hoping that the description, the one sentence description that that Drew will put in this table will help that, right? And that, you know, like just as an example, the bare metal and the corrected errors, right? You can't rely on the OS, therefore it's not feasible, right? You don't know what the OS is, you don't know what its capability is, you can't rely on it for anything. Therefore, it's not feasible to have an OS first model in that particular category. And hopefully the description, the one sentence description will be enough to provide an example that, to point out the deficiency, if you will.
I see. And I agree. And to that point, would it be better for us to leave the comment within the chart or leave it outside before we start this section? For example, OS first bare metal, it's not feasible because the OS is not owned by the operator. Now, if we were to repeat the same comment for non-fatal recoverable errors, right? OS first bare metal, why don't we kind of make a separate chart or a comment on the top summarizing what feasible means and what non-feasible means, and why, and recommended. What are your thoughts on that? Just
Well,
so, to me, when I was looking at this chart, personally, I even though, Drew just mentioned that it was a little bit more difficult to read, to me, it was fine, actually. To me, it looked pretty concise in my eyes. It just needed, extra comments, as Mark was saying. But do we leave the comment within or without the chart and kind of
I,
premise it?
yeah,
Okay.
I wouldn't have a problem if you wanted to do the comments in a footnote format and just give a pointer to the footnote.
or
Right?
maybe under the table,
Yeah, yeah.
a
You, you
paragraph.
know, you,
Actually, my vote would be to inside the cells itself, but
Okay.
it's just sure it makes the table a little bit bigger, but it's all no one's going to print this document, right? So it's all good. I think it's makes us so much more direct when you see it right there. But let's hear from others as well.
Well, I'm just putting an example.
yeah, the idea is if you wanted to go into more detail, Drew, you could put a footnote. I mean, you could maybe put a one sentence in there and then say footnote one, and then at the bottom in footnote one, have a more detailed description and even examples. You know, that way you
Yeah,
wouldn't.
if it gets very long, yeah, that works
Yeah,
too.
because it would be not, it wouldn't be feasible to put that much text in this table.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
a lot of, just a brief, quick description is what I was thinking of. Not a big example there, right?
Yeah, but if we needed more, right? If people thought we needed more, I would just footnote it and link it because you're going to probably have the same footnote in many boxes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, that's a good call.
That's exactly what I meant.
Oh, thank you. Okay, I get it now. I understand. I'm a little slow. Okay. Well, thank you. I think that's good guidance. So, but if you look at this top row, this is the kind of thing I'm talking about. So not real long.
Yeah, I think that looks good. Thanks, Andy, Mark, everyone. This is good improvement. And yeah, Drew, I think like Mark was saying, if we want to have more detailed illustration, something footnote is the way to go, right?
Yeah. Okay. Especially since the footnote can be shared. Yeah. All right. So I think the other thing I just wanted to mention was a comment. Carlos, your edits. I'm sorry, if you don't mind me moving on, but I loved your edits. This was really nice. I like what you did generally. Only thing I wanted to push back a little bit on is oh, and I copied the source of the drawing back in. So Yogesh, was that intentional? Do you know that did we mean to get rid of the source for all the drawings?
No, I don't know why and how it happened. Maybe when Vilas restructured, I don't know, or before it, but no, there was no intention to not have the source in place.
Okay, so I messed with it and it should work as source. Well, I thought I had. I'm clicking on it and nothing's happening. So, oh, that's so frustrating. Okay, I did put the picture back in. I'll fiddle with it and see if I can get the sources back in. The one thing I wanted to mention is you mentioned you made one change here, kernel error logging driver. So this is for out of band. There is no kernel error logging driver. That's an in-band concept. So what we want to do is any error logs we want to expose to a bare metal OS would have to be through the HEST. But that's like normal, right? Like when I look at the kernel code today, it already reads the HEST. So I think what we want to do is just have this path. So, Carlos, I just wanted to double check with you that that's okay.
Yeah, no, I was just following the arrows in that diagram. Maybe I mistakenly thought that the context was the BMC and not the out-of-band hardware. If you see, there's an arrow from the OpenBMC
To the
block
yeah,
to
to here.
the kernel error logging driver on the left, right? So I was
Yeah.
just trying to
Oh yeah.
be consistent with what the diagram was showing, but
Got it.
maybe
Okay.
messed up. Yeah.
No worries. So the reason that exists is because when we talked to Neil about it, there were things that the BMC could log that the kernel could never see. So it has to get some stuff from the BMC. So I think that's why it's there. But I'll clear that up then. But I think what we were thinking was there's some hardware that enables the BMC to put something in a place where we can tickle ACPI, wake it up, and it would move an error log to the HEST. And so that way, for instance, if we want to offline a 4K page, we can say, hey, there's an error in this page. OS, stop using it.
Yeah. Okay. I see. I think I see now. It looks like when I was editing, it was referring to the out-of-band hardware. And so I was following that arrow that goes. Yeah. No. I'm sorry. I think I confused it with a BMC. So you're right. That's probably it's something you can remove. I'm aligned.
Okay, I'll work on that. I just don't. I'll just leave it as kernel. Actually, I could say kernel via the test. And the nice thing about that is that's ACPI standard, and people will know about it.
Maybe we need to start leaving a little notes that the definitions of things we want to hyperlink somewhere, or we just want to do it in second sweep, whatever works.
Yeah.
By the way,
I think
we are almost. Sorry, go ahead, reply. Sorry,
Oh no, this is great. Well, thank you for just. I mean, I just think having this discussion can clear a few little things up, and we'll clean it up. But we're on the right track. If folks are okay, I think like a lot of what Carlos added might be just easier to just accept and clean up the comments. So I don't know.
Have people reviewed it already? I mean, you have. You want me to go ahead and review it today, and maybe who else, Rama, if you want to take a look before we clean up the comments.
Okay.
However, I mean, the minor thing.
I'll spend some time this weekend Going through it
Yeah.
also. Yeah, sure, Yavish. Yeah.
So
Sounds
Drew,
good.
typographic things, yes, by all means, go ahead. Changes which affect understanding, then maybe we should have another set of eyes.
Perfect.
Uh,
Yeah, I'm fine with
ask
that.
a comment. And feel free to add your comments there to whether you agree or disagree, and then that way we build up the consensus right there in the document. But I'm
Yeah.
afraid that we are running out of time, not only today but also in next couple of weeks. So yeah, we need to just work in parallel on that. So yep, I encourage
Okay.
everyone to leave comments there, and
I'm gonna
I'll
do
do
it.
the same.
Yeah. And there are a few things like where I said add a comment. I mean a comma. You know, it was like little
Yeah,
grammar things.
yeah.
We can go ahead and accept those to make it easier to get through the comments.
Mhm.
Who cares? There's a comma, right? Well, if we fix grammars, I think we just
Yeah,
accept them.
absolutely, absolutely. So we
Okay.
are a minute over. I think yeah. By next week we should have at least one pass, more than one pass of it, reviewed by a couple of eyes as assigned, and hopefully we'll be in good shape. I'll reach out to John and others about IC meeting, and with Drew, I'll work with you on making this slides for IC presentation. Okay.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks for the review, everyone. Thanks for the time. We're getting there. It's getting close. I love it. I'm really excited about this.
All right. All right, folks. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll see you all next week.
Yep. Talk to you later.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.